allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Brzezowski.
Here.
Duff.
Here.
Labor. Here. Middletti.
Here.
Moretto.
Here.
Monaco.
Here.
Tupper. Here.
Could everybody turn either off or down their cell phones so they're not going off during the meeting, please? I'm the king of allowing that to happen, so remind myself. Thank you. Roll call, good. Meeting minutes, any questions, concerns, complaints from our last meeting, which was in July, believe it or not?
Motion to accept the minutes.
September.
Oh, I'm sorry, September, excuse me. Any concerns? Motion?
It was good.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's move on to the cases. We don't have any correspondence that we need to go over right now. ZBA case, this was from October, which we did not have a quorum for, so we're hearing that now. ZBA case 22-724, John Blankenship, location of the property, Glengarry Inn, 1211 Glengarry, Wolverine Lake. Basis for the appeal, 1262.05. Minimum setback requirement, applicant is requesting a 25-foot variance for the awning from both Glengarry Road and Woodlawn. Variance approval should be limited to the existing awning and patio. It should have a condition that the future enclosure of this area with permanent wall is not permitted. 1270.03, applicant is requesting a variance to locate required buffer landscaping in the Glengarry Road right-of-way. So we have two different things that we are going to be voting on today. John, I see you in the audience. How are you? Stand up, you know the drill. Name, address, and tell us what you'd like to do, and try to be as detailed as possible, please.
John Blankenship. My address this time is 1211 Glengarry, since that's the Glengarry bar.
No, John, hold 1 second.
Sure.
Can I have a motion to open up 22-724?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
John, proceed.
This is my wife, Linda Blankenship.
What really they want to do, so, if what you're saying is fine, we're good with that, so unless there's something else you want to add.
Well, through the lawyer, Karen, we've spoken with her several times, and Mr. Powell, and there were several things that we had to do, which were add some bollards in front of the patio and the awning. We agreed to do that. We agreed to work with Andy and the DPW as far as the landscaping. There was an issue about trees. The ordinance says 5. We were hoping to get variance to just do 2. That has to do with our signage. That has to do with the site view for drivers coming out of Woodlawn onto Glengarry. We didn't want to drivers impaired, like when you come out of the village here, that's the trees are right there and blocking your view down Glengarry.
Yep.
I guess the Glengarry's been there since 1945. There was also, when they drew up the plan and the setbacks, there was the building and the awning were a little over the normal conditions, I guess, for that awning and patio that was added. That's kind of the overview.
Okay.
Sorry, we would have been more prepared. We were
Fine.
here several times, or ready to go several times, and this has been delayed a few times. We thought you would have an overview of.
Well,
We're ready with any questions.
I think
We can answer
have
any
an overview.
questions.
It's just, this is your opportunity to kind of,
Sure.
give to the public that's being recorded kind of what your overview is. So if they want to review this on YouTube, I believe it's on, they'll have the ability to do that because they don't have the information that we
Okay.
do. So,
The amount of, the land by the road belongs to the village, so we
Correct.
can't plant in there. And the land that belongs to us is so narrow, it's going to block the view of people intersecting. So we
Right.
just want to put one on each end to make it look nice.
The trees.
We want the bar just to look nice. We want it to be a welcoming place for the village, so that's our whole goal. And whatever you guys need us to do to make it look nice without impairing any vision, that's what we want.
yep. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All right. I will open it up to the public. Does anyone want to speak on behalf? Nobody against? Oh, go, please. Name, address, stand up, tell us what you'd like. Or what you don't like. Stand up, put it on the record.
My name is Connie Eman. I live right down the street, and I like the idea of the trees going in at the Glengarry. I think that would make it look much nicer.
Connie, can you give us your address, please?
2555 Woodlawn.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, did everybody have a chance to review? Thank you. Everybody had a chance to review the packet, kind of have a general idea of what they want? So we do have somebody that actually did send something in. It was sitting on the desk here. So I'm going to read this into the record. Date 12/19/2022, ZBA case 22-724, location of the property, the Glengarry Inn, 1211 Glengarry, Wolverine Lake. My name is Kathleen Borgman. I own the property at 2728 Brisbane Street, Commerce Township. My opinion is no. The road should not be altered. Here are some reasons, in no one particular order. An easement was already blocked off. The house adjacent to the bar's parking lot used to have the same easement. People could leave the bar's parking lot exiting via the house driveway. This was closed off, and the fence was put up. Number two, there was a recent accident. Someone hit and took out the road sign and part of the fence directly across from the bar. They came close to hitting the guy wires, I think she means guy wires, for utility pole. The traffic congestion in this area is highly increased. New housing, example, west on Glengarry, toward Wixom Road, et cetera, et cetera. 15 years ago in Glengarry, there was a few times, 24-hour period, where cars would pass each other in opposite directions. This congestion will continue as the new houses in Wixom and Glengarry roads develop. Glengarry Road has a very steep pitch in the row. One exception in the area near Glengarry Inn. In the event of emergency, people will need the row in front of the Glengarry Inn to exit the road. Number five, because both the Wolverine Lake Police and Oakland County Sheriff's Office have offices on Glengarry Road, they often travel at high speeds on Glengarry Road. This is true for the fire station. People need the full road to move and allow room for the emergency vehicles to pass. 6, several school buses also travel Glengarry Road. Again, we need unaltered row in case if there's emergency. 7, also consider the salt trucks, salt plow, and plow trucks throwing salt and snow. We need the road to accommodate the severe winter we can have. And that is, I'm sorry, there is one more. 8, several trees along Glengarry Road also have compensatory growth. They have trimmed along electrical lines. They have compensated by extending branches in opposite directions. Several branches now extend from trees on the north across one or both lanes of traffic. When these branches break, and they will, traffic will need to navigate around large tree limbs in the road. Both directions of traffic would be stalled in this event. Any adequate row would be absolutely essential. Please mail the meetings, et cetera, Kathleen Borgen, 2728 Brisbane. So, obviously not speaking on behalf. So, did everybody have a chance to review this? Kind of understand what they're looking for? This is the opportunity to ask questions. This was obviously in front of planning for, it looks like, quite a bit, since we do have somebody here from planning. Any input you can give us?
I think that was addressed during some of the comments on the recommendations from the village on what was to be added, the bollards and the separation. I don't think that there was any rejection of the plan by the planning commission on that issue.
So as far as the planning commission goes, the plan being submitted tonight was acceptable, as far as you know. Nothing
Right.
was altered, changed, or anything to that instance, okay? From a legal perspective, anything we need to look at?
Just to be aware of the conditions. And then also, down the line, if this does get approved, there will be an easement that will have to be granted for that encroachment into the right-of-way, because it's by the village, because it's village, technically village property. So that's something that can be taken care of, and the administrators, and I have talked to him, is aware of that.
Is that something we want to discuss tonight, or is that something that's
No,
not
that's
open for
just,
discussion?
that's just an outside legal issue that really doesn't affect what you're
Okay.
considering now.
So nothing we need to
Just
worry about
throw that
tonight?
in there. Nope,
Okay.
nope,
But something that you've talked about with the village,
correct, yep.
or you released your office?
Yep, just a further thing to make it more, just to cover all the bases legality-wise if you do approve this.
Okay. Well, if everyone's read through this, it looks like the village engineer was on top of this, obviously legal's been on top of this, planning's been on top of this. It's definitely been thoroughly vetted through the village. Appears that it's got some positive momentum going through the village. You know, anytime there's change, you're always going to have objection. That's just part of the board we sit on. So I appreciate Mrs. Boardman's, letter, putting the time towards it, and obviously that will hold some weight. But we also have somebody from the audience that feels that this would be good, and they're from the neighborhood as well. So, any other questions? If not, we can go through our checklist.
I have a quick question. Sharon, refresh my memory. Did you guys put the awning on, or was that on when you bought the bar?
The awning it was put on.
I'm sorry?
We put the awning
You put the awning on, which is why we need the 25-foot variance.
We might as well. I think the conditions can apply to it.
So when we agreed to this site plan,
They didn't give us a checklist.
Oh, you don't need to check.
Do you have any?
We can read off the minutes from the last week.
Go over, just everybody doesn't have.
We didn't vote on the other one.
Yeah, or you write the minutes from the last meeting. If you
I
can
don't, we
read that
just,
out.
I was just looking for myself.
Yeah, we'll just do the, good idea.
we have the
minutes from
sample
last
one from
meeting,
the packet
Okay.
for the
Somewhere.
next hearing,
Yep, I got it.
And then we can just go with that.
but I don't have the blank one.
Usually
Okay.
have them on the desk.
Right.
Is that gonna work for you?
For me?
Yep. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
No problem. All right, so there's nothing else. We're going to go in the closed session. We are going to close to the public, go through our checklist, and then go from there. Okay, agree or disagree that the special or unique conditions that the circumstance exists are peculiar to the land, structures, or building involved, which are generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district?
are we doing the checklist twice?
Yes, so I'm doing this
Yeah, the first.
for the first one,
The minimum setback.
which is the minimum setback, applicant requesting a 25-foot variance for the awning from both Glengarry Road and Woodlawn. So, special unique conditions, circumstance exists peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, which are generally applicable to all other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. I don't really know of anything that's going to be very similar to this.
Yeah. So it's commercial property too, so.
Right. Kathy, what do you think?
I kind of want to say that I agree with that because didn't they have a variance before to the setback? Is that a pre-existing condition or?
I think it was pre-existing. I think the awning was there when they bought, so,
Right.
I mean,
And
whatever.
they said they put the awning on, the patio was there. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
the patio was there.
Patio was there.
I think it's unique with the easement, so I'm going to
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. And the location as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Does anybody disagree?
No.
That makes it easier. Okay, and we're going to say because of the uniqueness of the property,
Call it non-conforming or...
non-conforming already. Excuse me, agree or disagree, the literal interpretation of provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms and the variance is the minimum necessary. Again, this is such a unique property, I don't really know if there's any comparison to it.
Yeah, you can't
Right.
say you agree with
I
it.
agree.
I agree.
Agree.
Okay, so we all agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Agree or disagree that the special conditions, circumstances not result in the action of the applicants, they are not self-created? Well, I think obviously when you're coming to asking this, I think they're creating the issue.
Yeah.
Correct.
So does anybody agree that it's not self-created? That they did create the issue?
It is created, it is
No.
created.
Self-created.
They did.
So we're going to disagree on those.
Yes.
Okay, agree or disagree the granted variance will be in the harmony with general purpose and intent of this ordinance, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody disagree?
Agreed.
I think these next two, which we normally just kind of fluff by, I think we really need to think through. And I apologize for that. The variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the general welfare. Normally we just kind of breeze through these two questions, but I think in this instance, being that it's a establishment on a corner, residential around it, I think we need to talk this through. I don't think it's injurious to the neighborhood. I think it's actually going to make the neighborhood a little bit nicer. But there's definitely going to be some change. Does anybody feel it'll be injurious to the neighborhood or general welfare of that neighborhood?
Well, I think if anything, with the additions that they've made to the site plan, it will help improve the safety of the patrons at the site.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anybody disagree? Mark?
I mean,
I'm good with it.
I think I'll disagree just based on the feedback from that letter that we read into the
Okay.
record.
All right, last one. Agree or disagree, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, substantial justice done. Do we feel this is a public safety issue?
Yes. Because it's improving the safety for the patrons?
Oh, in the positive?
Yes, in the
Oh,
positive.
okay. Yeah, you threw me off there.
All right, sorry.
Does anybody feel it's a public safety issue in the negative?
No.
No.
No, that awning's not a safety
Yeah.
issue for anyone.
All right, so can I hear a motion for the case, please?
I make a motion that we approve ZBA case 22-724, the 25-foot minimum setback variance.
Yeah, that's the basis of appeal 1262.05. We have a motion, we have a second.
Based off of, what was it?
5, 6, 1, all of them except for, all of them. You can do all of them except for 2.
Everything except for 2.
So 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all right?
Sure.
No, sorry, 1, 2, 4, 5, and
4,
6.
5, 6, yeah.
Did you get that?
1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you.
Perfect.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we have our numbers. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Claiborne,
Yes.
Minnaletti.
Yes.
Moretto,
Yes.
Rongo,
Yes?
Tupper,
Yes.
Rosowski,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go to the second part of this. We're going to go back through these questions again. For this one is going to be the applicant is requesting a variance to locate the required buffer landscaping in the Glengarry right-of-way. Number 1,
Wait, can we just talk about the landscaping just for a second?
Of
So
course.
Make sure, so we talked about it, I know they reduced the number of trees because it was basically a wall of trees in that small area. The rest of what we're talking about is basically just ground cover, is that right?
Well,
That's what I
I
read.
don't know, because if are you saying we're not going to be required to do any trees, and we're just going to?
No, I think they said, they just reduced the number, because before it was like 5.
yeah, we have 5 trees on this thing that you've supplied.
Yeah, and I see that the planning commission reduced the number of trees in working with the city engineer because 5 seemed excessive
Right.
in front of the bar. So we've reduced the number of trees, but as far as the rest of the landscaping of that area, my interpretation of the notes was that it would just be like ground cover, whether
Correct.
that's mulch or grass
That's
or
correct.
stones or whatever.
Just for the record, we wanted no trees, but that was a
It's a requirement of the
requirement,
village, I
so
understand.
it was
Yeah.
lowered to 2.
Right, and then the rest is just a professional landscaper.
Right.
He's already drawn it out.
Right.
We can't do grass, we can't grow grass there. It's impossible, but we're going to do a really beautiful stone
Yeah.
with planters and tree,
And there's no parking
Shrubs
there
and
where we're
things.
putting it,
Right,
so
right.
it won't inhibit
There'll be
the
a-
site.
Right.
the
tree on
drivers.
each side, and so I think it's going to be really pretty.
It actually provides a buffer in case there is some type of vehicle,
Yeah,
incident going towards the bar, someone loses control or
Right.
animal or whatever else, so. Okay, cool, thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I was just addressing this, our neighbors' concerns here, that won't be, if somebody was reaming out of control, I mean, there's nothing there that's going to stop them from using a little bit of the shoulder to, I'm not sure that that's an argument under the circumstances.
Speed limit there, I believe, is 25. What's the speed limit for any bar, 25?
35.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone should be reaming out of.
They shouldn't be, I'm just saying,
Maybe.
that was her argument, was
Little-
that if there was an emergency or people, needed to get off the side of
The
the road.
bollards will be protecting the bar.
The bar,
There's one,
exactly.
There's 6 every few feet, so you won't be able to come close to the bar.
Exactly.
And there's,
But you're not putting in a berm or, a big high
No.
wall or
There is,
anything like that. A
There-
little bit of a ditch.
there's a ditch that's
Yeah.
there's a ditch.
But that runs a hole.
And being that if there's emergency vehicles, I mean, I've been stuck on the Benstein Bridge with emergency vehicles going by and cars are on each side. I mean, there is going to be enough room there to ease your car off, and then the emergency vehicle is going to slow down, get past the vehicles, and then keep going.
Well,
It's
we're
not like
only
it's-
talking about it,
Yeah, but, I mean, yeah, what's the Benstein Bridge?
Yeah.
I mean, it's minimal, so
Okay.
it's just you pull to the side, and then people, the vehicle has to get by, so.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so number one, does anybody change their vote? From what we did on the previous
Can
vote?
you read that out loud to everybody?
With my bad voice, you'll make me do that? Okay, no problem. Special unique condition and circumstance exists with period of land, structure, building involved, which are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
non-conforming.
Does anybody not agree? Okay, so we're going to go 6 agree on that. Number 2, literal interpretation of provision of zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant, excuse me, of the rights commonly enjoyed by the other property, same district, on the same zoning terms, and the variance is the minimum necessary. Do we agree there?
Yes.
Yes.
Number 3, the special condition circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant. They are not self-created.
Disagree?
Disagree on that one.
Okay, so basically we can say the same there.
Right.
Okay, agree or disagree, the granted variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. We all
Agreed.
agreed on that one?
Agreed.
Agree on the second one, okay. 5, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the other general welfare. We had 5 agree and 1 disagree last time. Does anybody want to change their vote?
Nope.
Okay, so 5 and 1. 6, agree or disagree, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, substantial justice done. Does anybody want to change their vote? We all agreed on that last time.
No, want to change my vote.
I agree.
All right, so we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve ZBA case 22-724 on 1273.03.
Second?
Based off of,
Sorry.
and it was what, 1, 2,
Sorry, guys.
4, and
1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
And then we're going to,
Read in the special conditions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also applying the special conditions, the variance approval should be limited to the existing awning patio and should have conditions of further enclosure of this area with permanent walls not be permitted. Also, the bollards.
yep.
And we'll just clarify that the special conditions apply to both variances.
Correct. And then do we want to attach any of the drawings to this that were submitted?
I don't think we have any updated
I
though.
mean, we have this, but it's not really
It's not current.
So the
it's not
plan
current
was-
because we got 5 trees on this, so they're obviously not doing
Since they're
5
supposed to
trees.
work with the village engineer.
Yeah, the plans is
Finalize the
finally
plans.
So we
approved by
will
the
put it
village.
on to the village to approve whatever final plans that they have. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a motion, we have a second, do we have any discussion? Roll call?
Duff,
Yes.
Claiborne,
Yes.
Menaldi,
Yes.
Moretto,
Yes.
Rondo,
Yes?
Hopper. Yes. Rosowski.
Yes.
Okay, you're all set, guys? After the first of the year, before they get all probably the paperwork together, and then I would say go see them probably right after the first of the year. And I don't know what date they open back up, 2nd or 3rd, but hopefully within the next couple weeks, they'll have some permits for you. Okay? Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you very much, you as well.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Second case, ZBA case 21-710, Thomas Emmond, 2555 Woodlawn, Wolverine Lake. Basis for the appear, 1278.06, off-street parking of commercial vehicle in residential areas stated the parking of the commercial vehicle having a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds or less shall be permitted on private property and described in this subsection. The applicant is requesting a variance to park a commercial vehicle with gross vehicle weight rating of greater than 10,000 pounds on his residential property. Can I have a motion to open the case?
Motion to open.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is something that we talked about before. I see Mr. Evans here. How are you? So we can get up and kind of explain kind of what's happening, and we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Thomas Eamon.
Eamon, I'm sorry. Did I say
Sorry.
Edmund? I apologize.
So, last year I applied for I actually applied for 2 years to maintain, to keep my truck on the property. At such time, I was hoping to retire, and, but I was just giving a 1-year extension on it, so, or approval, and if I needed it to come back in the following year and ask for it again. And the reason I am is because I almost made my goals this year, but in August, economy took a downturn, and I didn't make it. So I'm hoping to have an opportunity, one more shot at it, so I can do that.
Okay. Remind me, what is your truck again?
It's a flatbed with a small tank on it, and it's parked along the side of my house, and if you ever drove by virtually, you probably wouldn't even see it.
What line of work do you do?
I have an asphalt maintenance business.
That's what I thought. I knew it was something with cement or asphalt. Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, nothing's really changed. I'm just hoping to have another year extension on it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything? No? Okay. Anybody in the audience would like to speak on behalf? I need you to do the formal. All right, I'm going to close to the audience since we don't have anybody else. We did have an approval from the audience, which is great, thank you. All right, so this was in front of us, I don't know what month, September. You know, we did talk about 12 months. So you're looking to go to when, September of '23?
I'd like to do it through December.
December of '23.
Yeah, because I'm still finished working the truck, cleaning it up and everything like that, and I have an opportunity to try and do something with it, to, take it off the property, sell it, or whatever I need to do.
Can you remind the board, Mr. Eamon, is it?
Yes.
Mr. Eamon, why you can't park it, in some kind of another lot or something, or, rent a lot or something other than on your home property?
Well, first of all, it's going to cost money that I don't have. Second, I mean, I've had it there for 40 years. Well, on that particular property for the last 22. And I had prior to that right next door for another 20 years. And it's very nice, very convenient. I'm just a very small business. It's home-based business that no one's ever complained about or...
You said next door. You live next door?
Yes. Yes.
You grew up next door?
Yes.
And you bought, now you live in the house? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Got it. It's all coming back to me. Does that answer your question?
I also remember them talking about when they come home from work, from the site, that their clothes are very dirty.
It's funny because my wife just said the same thing. I wasn't going to bring that up.
Yeah, and getting into another vehicle would be problematic if it's not a shop that has a shower or a place to wash up.
Right.
I'm just concerned about precedent. We had another individual who didn't have the longevity of our neighbors here, but had some similar circumstances, and I believe we gave him 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, the Snap-on guy.
Yeah, exactly, the Snap-on guy. That's my concern, it's just...
And I think he moved.
He did. He
Did
moved
he?
it.
Yeah, so he's gone. I don't know if he's still there, but I don't see the truck anymore.
He's still there, he just moved.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
You can ask whatever you want.
But I have a question for the board.
Oh, go.
Chris.
Yeah, we're
Would
good.
we feel differently if we didn't see the truck? Not that that's an option, but as a community, would we feel different if it was pulled into a garage and the
course.
door shut?
Of course we-
We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
Okay.
You don't need a variance if it's.
Yeah, if
Okay,
it's
so it's
inside
not
the
about
garage.
like the weight of the truck, it's not about
Well,
what's
it
in
is.
the truck?
It is. It's, the weight of it is, I mean, if it was a
Okay.
9,900-pound truck, it wouldn't be an
Yeah.
issue. But because, what does your truck weigh? Roughly? Top of your head.
Most of that.
Okay. We were over 10 because that's why we're here, so.
Yeah, it was a little over, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a 9,900-pound truck, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It's over 10 empty, when the tank's empty, it's over 10?
It's whatever, whatever, there's a rating of a
Rated,
truck,
right.
and,
Got it.
yeah, I mean, I think
Gross
they rated.
vehicle weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we tried to
Yeah,
look
because
it
you
up
have to
last time.
pay the tax.
And it's too high, it's too high to fit in there.
Ability.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm just
Travel
trying to
on the
think
road
through
with
like.
that.
Exactly.
It's too high to fit in their garage, was the issue, I think, wasn't that the too high?
Yeah, and, again, I also see vehicles sporadically spread throughout the village that aren't there every night.
Right.
I have a neighbor, I mean, there's 4 out of 7 nights, he probably has his cement cutting truck there. And it just kind of is, I mean, this is more of a a country atmosphere, and part of being out here is you're going to see boats in the wintertime next to somebody's house, and you're going to see extra vehicles. I mean, this isn't Birmingham, this isn't Bloomfield Hills, so it is a little bit of a different atmosphere. But we do have regulations on the books. We did do one extension. I mean, my initial thought would be is if we allowed this for one more year, that would be it. That if things don't go well in '23 and you need to come back again, it would be difficult for me to be on board with another extension. Because we are giving you basically 2 bites at the apple. And I think I remember saying that a little bit when you were here last year, that there's no guarantees the second time is going to work. And I think we all want to be open. We all understand the economy kind of did one of these and kind of, worked its way back a little bit. But we also have to look out what's best for the entire village, not just one resident. I hope you understand that. So if you guys have no other questions, we'll go through our checklist. Any other questions? All right. Agree or disagree that special unique conditions and circumstances exist with respect to the land, structure, or buildings involved, and which are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district?
Disagree. Yeah.
Does anybody agree with that? Explain to me why we're disagreeing.
Because it wouldn't make a difference?
Right.
Wouldn't make a difference, or...
Yeah, I mean, the only thing really that's unique about it is the vehicle's been parked there for so long.
Yeah, it's just the amount of
Probably
time.
before the ordinance went into place. And so that's what would make it unique, but
not particular to this
but
structure.
not,
Structure
yeah.
building.
Yeah, it's this lot, this house, this lot is no different than any other lot or building on this
Right,
street.
right,
the
it's
same.
just how it's been used.
Right.
That's all.
A literal agree or disagree, the literal interpretation of the provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms, and the variance is the minimum necessary. Does anybody agree with that?
I disagree.
I disagree.
Disagree?
Disagree.
Agree or disagree, the special conditions, circumstances do not result from the applicant, they are not self-created.
Disagree.
Disagree.
It's self-created. Agree or disagree, the granted variance will be in the harmony with general purpose and intent of this ordinance.
I disagree.
I do too.
Agree or disagree that the variance will not be
Is
injurious?
that unanimous still?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
The agree or disagree the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to general welfare? I will agree. I don't think this is hurting the neighborhood.
Right. I agree.
And agree or disagree, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, substantial justice done.
Disagree.
I disagree as
agree.
well.
I agree.
I agree.
Mark, what was yours?
Agree.
it's not public safety, but it's not in the spirit of the ordinance.
Right. That's what I'm
Still agree.
disagreeing based on.
I agree.
So do I agree.
So wait, let's get our.
So we have 5 to 2.
Count.
5 agree, 2 disagree.
5 agree that it is. let's
The
stick
spirit of the
with-
ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, substantial justice done.
And why, let's give a,
Personally, I just don't think this is a public safety issue. I think the substantial justice being done is we have a resident that is trying to retire in the next 12 months, and we are going to try to allow him to do that on this last potential variance.
Additionally, I'd like to add that in the last time that he came in, there was quite a bit of neighborhood support for him to have the vehicles still there.
Yeah, there's
That's true.
nobody,
Yeah.
That's true.
there's nobody that has come up and said, this is a problem, this is an issue. And, it sounds like this vehicle has been on the street for almost my whole entire life, so,
Right.
or at least a vehicle similar to that. So I don't think anything's going to change in the next 12 months because of this vehicle.
I forgot about the neighborhood support. I'll change mine to agree, please.
Mine as well.
I forgot about
It's
that.
unanimous that we agree.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
So what was that? What was the number out of yours?
All
7,
I know.
Oh.
5 and 6.
6,
5 and 6 immediately
5,
agrees.
Okay.
yeah, just 5 and 6.
Can I clarify that got that correct? So not a public safety issue on a temporary basis, previous neighbor support?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to add in financial hardship as well.
Yes. I would agree with that.
Which is not something we are supposed to consider legally, just to let you know when you're doing.
I would like to revoke that.
I mean, you can have your opinion. I'm just saying that generally speaking, those financial considerations aren't supposed to be in play when granting variances.
Got it.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ZBA case 21-710 based off of 5 and 6. And it's 1270.06.
We have a motion.
And
With the
what-
condition.
Yeah, what's the condition?
Sorry.
So do we want to add a condition possibly that it would not be
No more
eligible for
extensions.
an extension after
Yes.
that?
I would like that.
Yeah.
I would say that we would extend this till December 31st, 2023, with the understanding that they can come back in front of this board, because that is their legal right.
Okay.
But there is no guarantees that it will extend. I don't think we should put a caveat that you can't come back again, because I don't think legally we can do
Well,
that.
the same board might not be up here as well, so.
Correct.
But
You're the attorney. You tell-
technically, the only reason they're here is because it's an extension of a granted variance. Really, they're asking for the same variance again. So I think the board can put that.
Okay, if you,
I'd like to put that in.
okay, then that being said, the variance will extend till December 31st, 2023, with the understanding this will be the final variance on this truck for this particular property. Do we
Or
agree?
final, I guess not variance, but final extension. for
Extension of the original variance for this
Correct.
truck on this piece of property.
Correct, yes.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a friendly, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Minnaletti?
Yes.
Moretto?
Yes.
Toronto?
Yes?
Tupper?
Yes.
Rosowski?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Claiborne?
Yes.
Maria. But I'm going to tell you, it's probably,
Thank you. We do appreciate it.
you're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. All right, new business, assigned chair, vice chair, and secretary for 2023. This hasn't been done every year. Who wants to be the chairperson? Does anybody want any changes for anything? Is everybody good with how things are?
I am.
Unless someone wants to be co-chair, I'm happy to
No,
relinquish my
no,
co-chair
no,
responsibility.
you're good. You're good. All right, so I will do a motion to keep myself as chair, Aaron as vice chair, and Bonnie as secretary. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 3 ZBA, 3-year term expirations, the end of this year. Aaron, myself, Mitch, and Bonnie. Any one of us 4 have an issue continuing for 3 additional years?
Nope.
If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
You're sucked in for 3 more years.
So then, we didn't have a printed agenda, but there was a number 3 added.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we'll go over that in a
Okay,
second.
okay.
There is a memorandum from planning about, I don't know if you guys remember that we had a structure that came in front of us in the summertime. So I think planning is asking us if we're okay if they open this up, is kind of that what I understand? Is that what you guys want?
Yes, the decision was to bring it back to the zoning board to review, right? I think
Okay.
that's- Or to have it had to go through us to have it appear on our agenda.
Okay.
Over a change.
Basically, what it is the administration is aware, and then now village council at their last meeting was made very aware as well, that there have been issues that you as a board have discussed. And we did discuss that, and it just didn't move forward. But typically, it comes from the zoning board to see what are the problems. You know, you're the ones that are getting a lot of variances on certain things, and that would indicate like, hey, there's a problem here, maybe the ordinance needs to be changed. Now, the planning commission is the entity that actually proposes the changes, and then those proposed changes are finally approved by the village council. But initially, it's the ZBA that, I mean, not in all cases, but in this case, that when you see problems or see recurring things, you can then report to the planning commission, and that's what the village council voted, requesting that you do so, to look at it, because this board is the first starting point.
To give our input to the,
Right, to say, hey, I think, like, these kind of cases are coming up, and this is what we're seeing, and it might be wise to review accessory structures. Now, they would be looking for guidance as far as, do you think that that's appropriate to actually, you know, go and change and allow certain ones, and what would you suggest their starting point would be to look at?
Do you want suggestions tonight?
Yes, yeah, correct. That's why all this information that the village administrator put together and prepared, you know, regarding if you're not prepared, if there was some misunderstanding and you would like some more time to review it, one more month, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't in
Same
our
here.
packet, I think, and it would
Yeah, this,
be helpful.
I'm not saying it kind of got thrown on our desk at the last minute, but I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to give suggestions tonight. I really would like to think through it. I would like to take our time so we do it right.
Today, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to do it correctly and do it slowly. I don't think anybody's putting out anything in an outside structure right now. I think the weather is going to inhibit that anyways. So I think if we take our time, meet in January, which I think we have a meeting in January, correct, Tim? Well, it says we do.
Yeah, it said the 17th,
So-
but I think it's important that even if, just from my, and Mark being on council can, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the things that have been coming up with council, they do not want to delay any further. So I would just beseech of you, if we don't have a case in January, that we come
This one says
here-
we do.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a sticky that
Great.
says we do.
Okay, so if we didn't, I would want you to come anyway to discuss this, because it does take a long, there is a procedure
Sure.
to get to planning.
Of
and
course.
then- So
do we
there,
want to have any preliminary discussions tonight? Just
Sure, we can talk about it.
informal.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, I
can
think
throw
that'd
some
be a
stuff
good
on the
idea.
wall, see what
Yeah.
sticks, kind of
Yeah.
thing. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want to go back with this, this, and this, and this. I think we need to, you know, think about it, put some
Marinate
ideas
on it a
out there,
little
and
bit,
let it vacillate for a couple weeks, and then
So I thought-
in January, we need to make some hard decisions.
So I thought maybe if we had a little informal discussion tonight, it would get everybody's thought process going on what we really
if I
think
could maybe direct you to that general thought process, it's basically the issues that have been coming before you, it seemed like lately has been the gazebo
Yes.
issue.
Yes.
So do you want to look at, you know, either a new definition for gazebo, or getting specific, or,
Yes.
you know, what makes, or talk about or think about, maybe even for later, what differentiates a gazebo from another kind of structure? Because pretty much gazebos have been lumped in with all
Sheds.
accessory structures.
Accessory buildings, which I don't think.
So is it because they're open, you can see through it, they're
Right.
more airy, but what if someone decides to put a screen out, you know, like, what are the regulations that you think might be beneficial, or, and that's more also for planning to take over at that point as well. But, or do you want other structures? Do you think there's something else that needs to be included in this
Absolutely.
revision, that kind of idea?
Okay, so how about this? What do people think of sheds?
I think sheds are fine.
Me personally, no.
I guess from another aspect, though, if I may interrupt again, is are we seeing sheds coming before you?
Yes, we have in the past.
Okay.
And I've seen a few of them being put up that I'm not sure how they're there, but they're there. I've seen a couple on some newer built homes. We're also seeing outdoor kitchens. So some of that stuff has been up. Hot tubs.
Raised, like, that hot tub. that
The
came
hot tub
for this.
patio?
Yeah.
Yes.
How-
hot tub patio, Pool.
How would sheds that are already located close to the lake be addressed, though?
If it's a pre-existing shed, there's nothing we can technically do about it. But if
Okay.
something built that shed, for example, I know of one that was built recently in the last 2 years that's still there. I don't know how, but it's there. And it's been addressed with the proper people, but it's still there. I don't know if it's anywhere within the court systems,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
an
there.
issue, yeah.
You know, the one thing about a shed is, depending on the size of it, I mean, it could be an eyesore for
Yes.
people. But, I mean, I live next to somebody who has a shed that, again, we're on the lake, that is pretty close to their house. I don't see it. The neighbors next to them don't see it, but it's been there probably since I've been there, since 1997.
Right.
When I built my house, tore the old one down, I had a really nice cinder block shed. Tim told me, no, it's got to come down. And again, it's fine, it came down. So I think sheds can be a little bit concerning because now you could have this super big structure near the lake, and then you're going to have people coming here saying, you're blocking my view.
The other thing,
Right,
That's what I
think
agree
we really
with.
need to
Yeah.
address also, if we do define gazebo, I've seen at least 2 gazebo-type structures that are right near the water, that in the wintertime, they enclose them in, and they turn them into a shed for other crap.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Not on the lake, so. Yeah, I mean, to me, a gazebo is open air, open light. You could put electricity to it or whatever, I mean, that's not the issue. You can't put heat in it unless it's a portable heater, and you can't have windows. Screens are marginal, I don't have a problem with screens because it does keep the bugs out, but it has to be open air, open light. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, no solid walls.
No solid walls. There's a lot of different gazebos that are out there. I mean, you can buy them, the pre-made ones from Home Depot or Lowe's that are just basically 4 pillars and a little top to it, and it's got the little nets that come down for your walls. But I've also seen some around the village that look like somebody, it's like a cabana.
Yeah.
And I think those that have the solid structure walls and maybe just have an upper wall that's open, I don't necessarily know if I'm all for that. To me, I think the walls need to be completely open, whether it's just open or whether it's just screening is fine. But I think when you start closing things off, you run into the issue like Mark just talked about, where now they become storage.
Correct.
But again, I'm just saying from my approach, this is why we're talking, so everyone can give their
Well,
thoughts
I mean,
about it.
ultimately, if it does get opened up, what's going to happen is it's going to turn into Walt Lake, where you have literally sheds that people have right next to the water and just they fill it with crap, and that's what you're going to look at.
I mean, I know from my perspective, having a shed would be awesome, that'd be great, but I have made do in the 20-plus years I've owned my new house to figure out what to do with those things, whether it's in the basement, whether it's putting stuff up in the garage. I mean, you don't need a shed. There are things you can do, there are places you can go, and if you just have too much quote-unquote stuff, A, get rid of some of your stuff, or B, rent a storage unit for the winter.
Yeah, my stance on the shed was the fact if someone already had it built,
I can't really take down somebody's
older.
pre-existing
Yeah,
shed.
That's why I brought that up.
I mean, I hate to use the term grandfathered, it's kind of an odd term, but I mean,
Right.
it is something that I don't think anyone's going to do. However, if, for example, this gazebo we had talked about, I know for a fact that, again, if we can't allow this gazebo, why are we allowing the other gazebos? Because all of those are illegal. If that's been illegal from day one, why are those been allowed to be on the lake for however many years? If it's always been illegal, well then, why is it there?
Right.
This is why we have the code enforcement to say to these people, I understand what you built, but our codes have always made this illegal. So if we're going to open it up,
I think the administration now and council is aware of this, and I think they're looking for input too because of this. If the ZBA and the Planning Commission ultimately does not recommend that this should be changed, they're looking to you for guidance, the council, and I think then they would take a more aggressive stance at enforcement, potentially.
I don't think anybody on this board is going to want to give somebody a financial hardship by having to take something down, remove something that's been there for a long period of time. It's just, we all should play by the same rules.
I disagree with that, because ultimately, that's the only way that you enforce things. Because you have to give somebody a...
You do.
Agree, but my thought is, if we're going to say no to these three, then it should be no across the board. Then I'm okay with that.
100%.
Okay, but if we're going to do nothing and just say, well, we're just not going to do anything right now, well, then we should enforce what's on our books, which is, you built a gazebo at some point, it's always been illegal, take it down.
I think the
Does everybody agree with that?
village is aware of that. Yeah.
And okay, so if we are going to say that, we need to have like a baseline of what is the village going to do with these pre-existing ones? Are we going to inventory every property that has anything? So now, after this addition, if anybody adds a shed, and we didn't say sheds are allowed, they have to take it down because it wasn't documented as being there before?
I don't think that's going to be your responsibility, though. So your responsibility is more of, do you think that there is a need with the cases you see coming in and what you see in the village to recommend, hey, we should allow these?
Gazebos,
And
yes, sheds, no.
then the village will take over what needs to be done, so don't worry necessarily. But I was just trying to give an overview that they are aware that there is inequity right now.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So that will be addressed either way.
I mean, from
But-
my perspective, I think gazebos, yes. Sheds, I'm always a proponent of. I think that's just going to open up a can of worms, because then I think everybody on the lake's going to want a shed, and now all you're going to see are sheds as you drive around the lake.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, for the people who have sheds on the lake, good for you. You have some storage, but I just don't think that from a cosmetic standpoint makes our lake look like we want it to look. Gazebos are a different story. If you're talking open air, open light, there's some really nice structures that can be done, some on a permanent basis, some on a temporary basis. Now, I do think we should have, so many feet back from the water, et cetera. I mean, there should be, I don't necessarily want to see something right on the water.
And I think the current ordinance addresses that.
25 feet.
Yeah, I mean...
So
it's not a complete, you can't have it, it's this 20 foot. And I think that's how the issue has really been arising for you all, is that people want to put them right on, like on their dock.
Yep.
The
Well,
one
one guy
that's
has one
like-
in the water.
Yeah.
The dock, the bottom of it's built into the water, I believe. Isn't the one on Oak Island like that? Where literally the bottom of it goes into the water.
So I think that's a little bit more the issue now too. It's not that, you're going to allow it within that setback that currently it's not allowed.
Right. Now, I know that's been there a long time. It's been there ever since I've been in this village, but it's still not technically allowed. It hasn't been technically allowed, but it's been allowed to be there. So what's fair and what's not fair?
Right.
Do we have to grandfather structures like that in?
Not depending on when it was built,
But
depending on
how
when
do
the
they tell
ordinance
when it was built?
Well, I'm sure there's some,
shed.
I mean, I don't know, Tim, if there are permits or...
GIS is getting so good, programs that you can,
What's a GIS?
Geographical
Oh.
information system, 3D
county
mapping.
has aerial pictures of everything now.
Right.
You can go back to 1940 and look at a particular lot, and then you can see a roof. You can zoom in on them. Typically, you don't do ordinance work with, satellite photography, but
Drones.
it's possible when you say, hey, I've had that since 1950.
We could check it.
You can check it for sure.
Yeah, and I use that all the time in my community where I work, for that enforcement's sake. It is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's fine. I mean,
I like that smile.
I mean-
we don't have 100 of these. We probably have a handful.
Yeah, the last one with the issue was the setback. 'Cause
Yeah.
those folks wanted it closer to the water.
It was on
They
the
want it
water.
on the water.
Yeah, closer than 25 feet.
Right.
They could have kept it if they moved it back 25 feet. They didn't want to.
Right, and then they cited that there were other
Right.
ones, so that's why we're asking you, do you all want that? And if so, what kind of parameters would you be willing to open up within that 20-foot area?
When was this ordinance put in place, does anybody know? Has it been in place for?
Well, they changed it to allow stuff
Right.
not too long ago. It
Yeah,
was
probably like
5 years ago?
Yeah,
I'd like
maybe
to see the 5 years ago.
I mean, it looks like it passed in 81, and then most recently in October of 2021.
I mean, if this
Okay,
is,
that sounds
That
better.
accessory building definition's been in the ordinance for a long time.
Yeah,
since 81?
but they just, we
Since
just
I
fine-tuned.
started.
Yeah.
Oh, since you started?
all
Wow, that's
the
been a long time.
dudes.
It's not 81.
So what is the board's overall impression then about, do you want to
Yes.
allow gazebos, and whatever that might be determined to be, within the 20-foot, like literally into the water?
No.
No, absolutely.
Or on top of the dock?
No.
Within 10 feet?
No, I think the current is sufficient.
I think 25 is probably far.
It's 20, I believe.
Is it 20?
But after 20, they can have it.
I mean, again, I'm not going to die on the hill of it's 15 to
Right.
20. I mean, if it's 20, then it's fine, but
20 feet's only the length of a living room, that's not very far,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that's not very
But
far.
right after 20, they can have it, they wouldn't come before us.
yeah, if it's closer to the house, 20 and towards their house.
Closer to the house, right.
Right. Okay, but then how do we handle the quote-unquote, the people that have the promenade? Because now they're stuck because they have this piece of land that they don't technically own, but then they have land on the other side of it that we think they own it, but we're not sure if they own it. But technically, if you go back from their lot line 25 feet, for example, my house, I would technically be on the promenade. So I couldn't do that, so I'd be at, 40 feet. So how do we handle, and it's Del Monte, Lakeview,
Del Monte, Lakeview,
Angola. I mean, there's some streets there that have, the inequities of that promenade that kind of swings around their property.
Well, that's, and I don't know if I'd say inequity per se, that's the way it was platted, and it was intended for public, people to transverse it if they wanted to.
Right, but, times have changed. We know it's not used for that. We know it's not marked for that.
It could be, though, that's the, I mean, it could be.
I guess anything could be, but unless the village wants to go and technically mark it all and spend all that money and actually go into the lake where some of it goes, because actually some of the promenade actually is 15 feet into the lake now. We have to figure out for everybody in the lake to be on the same page. I don't want to be involved with something where this person can do something, but this person can't because of the way a promenade sits. Either it's for everybody, in my opinion, or it's for nobody.
Well, I think at this point, let's just focus on, the promenade is just a different issue as to how you're measuring the water's edge, so that's a whole different ball of wax.
I think we're all willing to open up and listen to gazebos.
But again, it's, do you want a gazebo on the shoreline? Because I think that is what a lot of the people want, is for that convenience of, to be right at the water and to have
Right, so
shade
why are
and
we
to
saying
have.
Gazebo at the shoreline.
I know, why are we saying no? Because I would say yes, that sounds great, there's shade, we want a community, why wouldn't we allow someone to have shade down by the water to enjoy their yard?
Because I think it's going to be turning into something that's going to look like a shed.
Well, we have to define what a gazebo is, and if not, they take it down. I don't know, open air, open light.
Do you see the one on Oak Island? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I know, I go by it, I just don't know. if I've
It's on the
noticed it.
lakeside. It sits like on that corner where it goes by the canal.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, he's a gazebo, he's open air, open light during the summer. I haven't seen it in the winter. I mean, you've said something different. But if everybody has that on the shoreline, I don't know.
Well, think about all the people that have boat lifts, that have the canopy over it and everything, and how much visual space that takes up, We're not going to ban that, but, obviously, but
But now, gazebos too.
that's probably more obstructing to your vision of the lake than a gazebo would be.
We can also put a size to it. If it's going to be on the lake, it can only be so big. It can only be so tall. I'm not opposed to not talking about anything. I mean, I don't want to say no to anything tonight. I'd rather just say, okay, let's have the conversation, let's talk about it.
I think in general, though, to focus it, you all right now could make the decision that you're just talking gazebos versus not sheds, is not in the play.
Sheds will never fly for me. I'm always a no on a shed, but that's just my opinion, not you guys.
Agreed.
I mean, I don't want to sway somebody, but from my approach, I don't believe a shed is needed, especially in a lake community like this, because I think, okay, now you can do a shed and a gazebo, and then a boat hoist. Oh, great. That's going to look awesome if everybody has that on the lake.
Yeah, and I wanted to say too, not only from a visual standpoint, but from an environmental standpoint too, being a shed, for instance, being located closer to the shoreline could potentially.
Gas, you got oil.
Exactly.
Fertilizers. and
Exactly.
things.
I think that doesn't fly very well.
That's
with me, but-
Yeah, for example, I know Natural Way, which who I use, doing technically, they can't go within 25 feet of the shore, of my seawall.
Right.
And, we always have different looking grass on that last 25 feet because they technically can't ever fertilize there. But I see people with their little fertilizer thing just go right up to their seawall, and you can see that they're spilling it into the lake, and that's why they have a bunch of weeds in front of their house, too.
Yeah, I just wanted to vocalize that.
Yep.
For my-
Lord knows we get enough of those, yeah, so, I'm good with gazebos. Anybody else?
So do we need to think about definition of, does that include pergolas? Is it a shade structure?
I think a pergola and a gazebo are very similar, because we're talking about open air, open light. If we're saying that there is no enclosures.
Yeah,
And the other one does not
pergola
have a roof.
is somewhat,
Pergola's open.
it's like a lean-to almost.
Yeah.
I believe we have definitions, and I would encourage everybody to look in the ordinance for the
Guy in
definitions,
Marsh
because I just don't know right off the top of my head,
maybe
but I
4 years
do
ago?
believe there is.
I'd like to do more research for sure, just to understand height and whatnot.
Yeah, the guy with the kitchen.
Yep.
Yeah, slotted, yeah, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, a pergola is going to be open roof, I think, where a
Yeah.
gazebo is going to be a closed
But they
roof.
do
essentially a lean-to.
have, they do have canvas things. you
Yeah,
can put
people
on
throw
them
a
now,
canvas
so-
roof on a pergola.
Yeah.
And then take it off, a sail almost.
Yep.
And what about canvas sides on a gazebo?
It's not open air, open light.
Okay.
Does everybody agree with that?
Agreed.
I mean, if I can't see in it, it can't be done.
About enclosing under your deck.
No. I'm so not a proponent of that, because all that's doing is adding storage, it's like a shed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have on this board, have allowed that for, I believe, 2 people that I'm aware of. One was the end of that cul-de-sac near South Commerce, and every time I drive by that thing, I kick myself for voting yes for that, because it looks like a major eyesore. But again, I'm only speaking for myself. Does everybody know what they're talking about, where you're enclosed underneath of the deck?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
Like
I-
on a walkout, if it's a
Yeah,
regular-
walkout.
Yeah,
house.
and the guy's got a door on it, and he's got electricity in it, and
It's already got a roof on it because your deck is above it.
Oh, okay.
So then underneath, you build walls and create storage under your deck.
Yeah, my neighbor did that, my friend did that on Commerce Lake, and he had a lot of issues with Commerce about that, but he kind of did it on his own. He didn't know it was illegal. So, no, I'm not a proponent of that, but again, that's just my perspective. Do we need to talk about like swimming pools? Is that what you're looking at as well? I mean,
There was
how-
just the one that came, because it was a little bit different, because it was raised above ground.
Well,
whereas like
hot
the
tub,
pools-
hot tub walls qualify them as an above-ground pool.
Mhm.
How many
Oh,
hot
you're talking the
tubs?
hockey guy?
How many hot tubs are on the lake?
No, it's down on
quite a
the.
bit.
So all the
Water
hot
jump.
tubs on the lake are above-ground swimming pools and not permitted.
So we had
One on
discussed.
each side of
I
me.
remember that case.
Do you
One's a
all-
teacher, one's a cop.
At this, at least as a preliminary, if council and, I don't, it won't hurt to talk about it for sure and then bring it to planning, do you all agree that the definition, because that's like the definition of pools, that should be changed so that hot tubs are not prohibited?
Pool should not be included in hot tubs, as long as it's a standard size hot tub.
See,
Now,
that's what I would do. I
a
would-
4-person hot tub, but not like a swim spa. Like I have a neighbor and friend in Troy, she has the swim spa, which is like 6 feet long, where her kid can just swim in it, and the water just pushes her back.
Right.
That's a pool. And she calls it a spa. I'm like, no, that's a pool. If I can swim in it, it's a pool. And where a hot tub is, you get into it, and and maybe I do a little research online, and what's the standard size of a standard hot tub?
Yeah.
I don't know, what is it, 4 by 4. Does anybody have a hot tub here? I don't. I can measure my neighbors, I guess. But I think it's probably 4 feet by 4 feet. Maybe 5 by...
Yeah, I would say it's a little bigger, like
6 by 6.
6 by 6?
60
Okay.
inches, yeah. A 4-person is probably between 60 and 70 inches. Because you've got it's not just the water, you've got the edge and the ledge and all that kind of goes.
I mean, I think if we look at it as it's a hot tub and put a size to it, then no, I don't think a hot tub is a pool. But again, if you get those quote-unquote, swim spas, to me, that's a pool. If you can do laps in it, that's a pool.
Yeah, and I think it would be wise to differentiate between a swimming pool, a spa, and a hot tub, for instance. If we're-
And the definitions.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
And definitely, I guess your role, and I was just trying to look for what the definition is right now of pool, but your role would be to say, okay, Planning Commission, we think that as written now, basically all spas and hot tubs are prohibited because they're lumped under that definition of pools, but we see cases coming and we think it's appropriate for you to look at changing it to allow hot tubs, but not spas. And then it leaves it to the planning expert, because they do have the planning consultant that works with them, and then their expertise then would be used with the Planning Commission to say, okay, what is the standard hot tub? What is the, that sort of thing, so you don't have to get as nitty-gritty.
So we don't have to
that.
get technical, that's going to be
No.
somebody else's job.
Correct. But something like the gazebo, on the other hand, because you are looking at regulations of allowing that placement and what you think is appropriate, you could call out what you think may be appropriate for height, for instance, just suggestions of that. But again, that would then be for them to fine tune. But in general.
Just the parameters we were considering when we made our recommendations.
Yeah. And from what you see as, people coming in that have these things that are not currently allowed.
But didn't something with kitchens just get changed? Outdoor kitchens?
You allowed them.
Yeah. But didn't planning
Yeah.
do something different with them as well? We allowed it for that
was
one,
the placement.
Right.
They're addressed in the
Yeah.
zoning ordinance now.
Yeah, they're defined, like the fireplace is defined, as they were accessory structures because they were permanently attached to the ground, those brick
one guy
pavers.
we had.
So now we define them and tell you it can't be taller than 10 feet. I don't know the regulations.
But those are allowed now.
Yes.
Okay.
Before
Within
they
so
weren't.
many- Right.
With
And
certain,
that
under certain
one house
parameters.
We thought was part, because it was basically attached.
Yeah, attached to the
I can't remember his Gullison,
Like the brick
Gutterson, or
deck or
whatever his
something.
name was, the guy living on.
retaining wall for the house was part of the,
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, I
Or
think we got a
having a
little bit of...
gazebo on your deck isn't part of your deck. It's a gazebo, accessory structure in your yard. It's not part of your deck.
Correct, because you have to build it separately. I mean, it's not part of your deck.
No, you can build an enclosed, roofed-over portion of your deck that's separate from your house, but that is an accessory structure now.
Right.
That's how I'm supposed to look at it. It's not part of your deck anymore.
Right.
Even though
people-
it's sitting on your deck, it's an accessory structure on your deck.
Right. Okay.
People were building like the big privacy wall on the deck, and then it kind of kept going from there. So I think it.
No, this is a regular
addresses
deck with an extension on the deck, and then you put a gazebo on it, or a covered porch on the deck. Well, that isn't a deck attached to the house. That's an accessory structure built on the deck. So it's not permitted in the lake.
Was that one within 25 feet of the lake?
Well, that's another reason they
Oh, okay.
gave the 25 feet, so.
Because they didn't have, wasn't it like it wasn't allowed at all?
Wasn't allowed at all.
And then the new ordinance, I think, put in the restriction, it has to be 25 feet setback.
Yes.
But I think the cases that we've had have been less than that 25
Right,
foot setback.
so that's the issue to
So-
keep in
Everybody
mind
wants it
as
on the
well.
water.
That
That's
they
the
still are
issue. Yeah.
allowing these things, but now they want to move it
Yeah.
into that edge.
And so I don't know if that restriction really answers the need that we're seeing of people coming in and wanting, to do something within the 25 feet. Because I think it was just put into place so that it would regulate it better.
Outside of the 25 feet.
Right.
Or when the planning and the village originally, decided they needed to make some changes to allow these accessory structures, they did specifically, in accordance with that, say, okay, but not 25 feet, or it's 20 feet, I believe. So, okay, we're making these changes, but that 20 feet is sacred.
Right.
Nothing there. So now we're asking, because people are coming, with the gazebo in particular, we want them there, because we want it right at the water, we want, and yeah.
Well, it's the whole thing, give an inch, they take a mile. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, yeah, in
So
that
that's
case on
for you to-
Angola
yeah, think
was the one that they put it up, and it's closer to the water, and they wanted you guys to consider changing that rule to 25 feet, or the 20-foot rule.
Right, I think we thought about that because there was numerous people that had that already.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's either got to be all for one or all for none. And right now, it's not. Right now, other people are being able to do something that certain residents are not able to do.
And it kind
That's
of
correct.
depends on if there's neighbors that, complain about it and notify the
Sure.
village that something just went up.
Hey, this gentleman in the truck today, I hate to tell him, more than likely a neighbor turned him in. And that's probably how it got onto onto the village's radar. It probably wasn't the code enforcement. A new neighbor looked at it and said no, and didn't like it. Like I said, I have a neighbor that has it. Nobody sees it, it's kind of tucked away in the back, but it's not every night, but technically he parks that big thing there, probably, especially in the nice weather, not in the dead of winter, but it's 3-4 nights a week. But, he's retiring anyway, so he's probably not going to be there much longer. It's always the neighbor who turns you in. I rarely think it's code enforcement that actually sees something unless it's just so blatantly obvious. Because there's just so many rules and regulations to think about.
Well, back to the point, though, that's what we want you to focus on here.
Okay,
Do
sorry.
you think that, with that in mind, like, here's how the rule is. Now people are breaking the rule, and I know you saw it as inequitable because people coming in to ask and follow the rule are getting rejected, yet they say, but all these people have it. So that's up to the village to enforce, and the village is aware of inequities, but the question then is, do you think it should remain how it is, or do you think that it really is a better rule to alter that, to allow it?
And to do that,
So
we would be pulling out the gazebo or
Right.
shade structure from the accessory building ordinance to make
Correct.
it separate.
Correct.
If we were to
Yeah.
talk about moving.
And kind of
the
look
rule.
aside from that there's inequities now, just in general. Do you think, as a board, from what you're seeing, that there is a need to change it?
Changing it from being 25 feet from the 20 feet from the water.
Right.
Now, are there any concerns from a building structural standpoint to have these located closer to the water's edge? I mean, it may vary from property to property, but are there any concerns structurally as they're placed or located closer to?
Yeah, no, they all sink close to the water, and it doesn't matter,
I thought you were going to say something else.
No,
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
There's no really code requirement for them because they're too small.
Yeah, you're not driving pilings to put in a
Okay.
gazebo, nor do we want pilings being driven that close to the lake anyway.
I
I guess
really
I was
don't
trying to
want
think
the
of
postals driven close to the
a
lake 'cause
safety
they go
reason
away
as to
and-
why we wouldn't locate them within the 20 feet, but if that's not of concern, then perhaps something to think about.
Good point.
Well, you just did a really good term. Do we want to keep the park-like setting around the lake? And when you're driving around the lake, you're not staring at a bunch of structures. Obviously, you're going to be looking at stuff in the water because that's where people park their boats. And I don't even know if we could even regulate that. But that being said, do we like the open air, open light around the lake? Or do we want to start cluttering 20 feet going towards the water line? Because I will tell you, if we open this up, you're going to have a flood of people coming in here wanting stuff.
Well, not to mention, you have to look at it too in terms of, okay, so you're good at 20 feet, that's not good enough, they're gonna do it anyways and come in front of us, open that up, are they gonna start building sheds? And say, oh, well, we're gonna come in front of you and ask for a shed. So why are we adjusting our code because people can't follow the rules?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to have the rules, we have to protect the lake. And yeah, I think we would all love a gazebo around the lake. I don't think anybody that wouldn't. I think it'd be really cool. But it does come down to what is the best for the community and what is best for the lake. Is it better to have a bunch of gazebos and not everyone would do it, but I would say you'd probably have quite a few. Or do we want to have it more open like it is now?
I like it open how it is now. It's my opinion.
As I say, I think it's more of a slippery slope type scenario.
Yeah, I think
It really is, because...
I'm scared to death on the type of structures people
Well,
are
that's the
putting up.
you can't,
What's somebody's definition of a gazebo? Oh, yeah, that's my gazebo. It has, a roof and sides on it, but it's still a gazebo.
if there was something that was made, you'd have to get really specific with it, which is going
Yeah,
to
but
definitely
they're
be
not
hard.
They don't follow it right now.
That's
Why
what
would
I'm
they
saying.
follow it then?
There's really
That's the
no
point.
accountability,
It's a slippery
even
slope
if you
to
get
me.
specific, because
Well, it comes down to the village taking a resident to court.
Yeah, I was just going
Yep.
to say that.
Which then costs us
money.
So that it is-
Exactly.
there
Which
is
is not
equity.
what the village wants to do.
No,
Right.
of course not.
And if the village has to take 80 people to court, that's going to be not really good for our budget.
right,
Great for the attorneys, not for our budget. So
right.
Here's a question too, it's how it even got here in the first place, is just trends. So do you as a board see it, because again, as I was saying, you're like the first line of seeing things from the residents in a practical sense. Do you see that in a practical sense, just the way life is going on the lake, life in your community, that it makes sense to allow for that? Or do you think
No.
there's others that are, just because you're just seeing a
I
smattering?
think it's a culmination of COVID and people got bored at home and decided to build stuff. And two, that we adopted the ordinance to allow them at 20 feet, and people took that as, well, if they allow it at 20 feet, they're gonna allow it at the thing, and if I get a ticket, I'll go in front of the ZBA and get a variance. That's what it comes down to. So,
Yeah, but I also think we've had a lot more severe storms in the last few years. Like, wasn't the gentleman here because he lost a tree, or a tree took down his old gazebo, so he had to construct another one? Like, we have massive trees coming down in the community. If you don't have shade down by the water, it's not really comfortable to spend a lot of time in direct sunlight. So I'm just devil's advocate, like, there's a lot of massive trees in our community that are no longer there.
what if, again, just spitballing, what if it's a portable scenario? To where those temporary structures, the ones you see at Lowe's or Home Depot.
Well, they're allowed, aren't they, Tim? If you pick them up, you put them away, bring down your portable, like, soccer game shelter, right?
They're all
Or
gone.
no?
yeah, they're all gone.
They're gone.
Well, you'd have to take it down every
Yeah,
night.
they would.
Right.
That's not my fault.
I
They
know.
would,
Like, you can
they
see
would
that.
consider those metal ones with the metal roof portable. That's,
yeah.
everybody tells me that this is,
It's portable.
that's
But
how
if
they
you take it
sell it
down
on
every
point.
night?
I think they're saying it's portable because you could take
You
4
could
hours.
disassemble it, yeah.
Disassemble it. It's portable. Yeah, it might take a degree and 9 different people to
Yeah.
disassemble it. But, and I'm not saying that's a good idea either. I'm just saying, because that's what that gentleman had, is in his mind, this was portable. Because it was just 4 little posts, a little top on it, and then he had a netting around. And Aaron's got a good point, that we are losing some large trees around the lake. It does tend to be a little more problematic. But again, now you're going to open it up to doing this. How many people are going to start throwing gazebos? And obviously, I think we've pretty much nailed the shed thing, but I mean, how many people are going to actually do these gazebos within that 0 to 20-foot radius? But you can also, if you need shade, you can do umbrellas.
Yeah.
You can do other stuff. And you have a great point. I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are alternatives
Sure.
that people can do without the village opening up what we think is best for the lake. And also, the more people that camp out around the lake, the more debris, the more garbage, the more everything that, seems to...
Get in the lake.
Correct.
That as I drive around the lake on the weekends, you just see garbage everywhere. And I'm not sure why anybody throws stuff in the lake, but, being that I'm on the northwest point, it seems like the wind always blows that way, and I'm always scooping stuff up out of there. Toys and everything. It's just amazing the stuff I pull out of there on a Saturday or Sunday evening after a busy lake day. It's crazy, but
So if we say no to this, all the gazebos that are in violation come down. I'm asking, that's like a question.
well, that would not be up to us to
No,
decide.
that's just like for me, like just for my knowledge, like is that what we're saying?
They should.
Technically, yes.
Okay.
But it's up to the village to do that.
Sure, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like if we're,
We'd make a recommendation not to change the current ordinance, is what we do.
Correct, yeah, if you don't think, and that's what, from what you were saying before, what I've, told the administration, and then from what resident that was going before council a few times, were indicating, hey, there might be a need to change this, and so that's why the administration and the council wanted you to take that, to verify that that's what you think, and take the first step from you
Yeah, I
guys.
think the need is, it's either allowed or it's not.
Right.
And if we say it's not allowed, then the village needs to take a strong stance against the current ones that are there. And where it goes from there is not the board's place, it's the village's responsibility, but I think we need to take a strong stance, because the people that are just build stuff just to build it and then hope they don't get caught, I think they need to understand that the village will say to them, grab a hammer and take it down.
Right.
But it's going to cost $3,000. I'm sorry, take it down.
Should have built it in the first place.
You shouldn't have built it in the first place, you didn't have permission. But it's been there for 5 years, you don't care. You did something that is against our ordinance, 5 years ago was against our ordinance. Just because you didn't know about it, doesn't mean it's legal or it's right.
Yep.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think the stance, like village taking that stance is extra important, because if we're going to, make that recommendation and keep having this issue come up, if that stance isn't taken, the ordinance, what's the point, right? So,
Doesn't have any legs.
right, so we need to make sure that that happens.
And I think we need to take the stance as well as, and again, you have to take each case individually, but when somebody comes in here and asks for that variance off of this, I mean, our stance is, it's there for a reason.
Right.
And again, you could always, everything could be approvable, but our stance should be it's no until you really sell us on why you need this.
Correct.
And you really have to sell it. I mean, I'd love a gazebo, it'd be great, but I think you're opening up a can of worms. But I do think for the spa thing, we have to determine what is the difference between a whirlpool, a pool, and a spa. I'm not even sure what the difference between a spa and a whirlpool is, or a hot tub, excuse me. I'm not sure what the
I would
difference
call
is.
them spa and a hot tub, to me, is
I
the
think the whirlpool is the one you have built in your bathroom.
Could be.
I believe that's that one's totally separate than the hot tub or the spa.
Whirlpool tub.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, whether it's, like my neighbors have hot tubs.
Yep.
Okay, hot tub to spa. Well, I've heard them each say hot tub and spa about the same piece of equipment. I think it's a general term, and I think we need to define those terms. So we know what those are when somebody comes in front and says, well, no, I have X, and we go,
I
well,
think
no,
that
you
would be
don't.
more or less the swim spa. I think the key definition is swim.
Okay, well, then we
Something that's swimmable.
So as a board, would you like to make the recommendation that then we can put on to the administration and planning commission to say that you see cases coming before you and you think your recommendation would be to allow hot tubs to a certain parameter and distinguish that from a swim spa?
above-ground swimming pool.
And to change to alter the definition to more clearly define what a swimming pool would be, a swim spa, and a hot tub, and something of the nature in general of a hot tub would be allowable. You would not, you think that that's an appropriate thing to have in a lakefront yard, but not a swim spa or pool, and then leave it to the planning expert to define what those are.
Yes.
When you say pool, you're speaking of above ground pool.
Yes, because currently I think it's like anything is over 18 inches or something that can hold water over 18 inches that holds water is not is considered a pool.
But a below-ground pool is okay?
Yeah.
Yes, in-ground pool.
Yeah, we have
In-ground pools on the lake is approvable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just above ground.
That's correct.
Can't have it.
And so you, as a board, would like to recommend that, to look at the definition, and you feel that just from the cases you're seeing that come in and just the general times of with the village, that hot tub would be appropriate in lakefront yards?
Yes,
With
because
regulations.
right now, none of them are permitted, and they're supposed to be.
Okay.
And
Right,
what
Tim?
separation
That's correct.
from
You're
the
not-
water.
Well, I take that, I strike that. We did approve a
Well,
couple of
yes.
them late.
Yes, you've had
That would be
three,
within that
yeah,
20 feet.
on your
Okay.
agenda.
But there are probably
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
dozens
Yeah.
that are on the lake.
For sure.
And most people probably don't even realize that that needs a permit. They probably just think, well, now,
Yeah, I
should you
agree.
because you're running electrical? But I guarantee you, I know 2 people that did not pull permits. And it just is what it is. One bought the house with the pool, with it there. It wasn't their fault. But it just is what it is, and I think we just need to define it a little bit more. And I think we'll just eliminate a lot of the problems and issues.
So that's one, so we can go forward with that. Now,
Sure.
the second one, if you're ready, or if you want to take more time, but I think you've pretty well narrowed it down to a choice of, do we allow them or don't we allow them? Within
what?
gazebos, within whatever that may be defined as. Do you want to take that first step and say that a gazebo-type structure, whatever you may further define that as, should be allowed within that 20-foot setback, as currently they are not?
Let's take a vote. What do you think?
Well, I think if that goes hand in hand with enforcement, that everybody complies with it.
Yeah.
Anybody that had that structure there built after that ordinance, not this new one, but when the original one went in.
Which is 81?
If it was, then if we have to go back to aerial photography and you have documentation to prove it, then they got to take it down, because our problem is that we have to decide when somebody comes in whether to give them a variance from it or not.
Yep.
And if it's something
Yep.
we decide that because this is part of the character of our lake that we want to continue to model going forward, then everybody has to follow that, not just people that got away with it.
No, I agree 100%.
Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
It's okay if you do.
I know. I'm just undecided. I know, I can say, I can go either way.
I mean, I think the pergolas that I've seen, and the gazebos down by the water are nice, and I know the people that have them really enjoy the heck out of them. So that's going to be a difficult thing for the village to enforce that, because they're not going to take those down
No, it's going to be.
voluntarily.
Right.
But that's not our issue.
Right.
That's why we have council.
But I also say that, the ones that I've seen on the lake, they're nice. And it would be a benefit to the property to be able to have that. And they're kind of in there and amongst all the, the boat lift canopies. You can't see them as much, because they're kind of obstructed by the boat lifts. But I don't feel like I don't think like everybody's going to have one.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you, too.
Because it would be a nice thing to have.
I think it would be a nice thing to have, but
People are going towards wanting to do that. They've really improved the design of them a lot. They look a lot nicer than what they had in the past. I think if it's just something where we can have open air sides, that'll solve the concerns that we have about storage and materials there that shouldn't be by the water.
Well, you know what's going to happen next, though. When somebody is allowed to put that in, you're going to get neighbors on each side now. You're taking away my view. Now, in a house scenario, you're farther back. We've never really dealt with a lot of accessory structures, by the water. You now allow that. Matter of fact, the house that was built with that fireplace years ago, 7-8 years ago, an old councilman was his neighbor. And he said he didn't like the way everything was positioned because it took away his view, and that became a huge problem, not only for the board, but for council. Because he was very upset that when he walked on his deck, that normal view he had for 40 years is now disrupted. So if we're ready to have that fight and argument, because you're going to have that with especially longtime residents. If you take away their view and it's close to that water, there's going to be a problem.
Well, that's a good point, I think.
That is the
But-
reason the 20-foot was
Yep.
put in.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. But then again, the pergolas or gazebos aren't solid walls like
Yep.
that pizza oven.
And I'm okay to have that fight. I'm just saying that fight's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Now, is this something at all,
I'm not going to remove my gazebo.
is this something at all that we could throw on and have a survey to ask residents? I mean, I know that may be a naive thought.
From a
but,
cost perspective, it's probably not feasible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking, you send a postcard out,
Thousands
you're going to
of
have
letters.
1,000 phone
Right.
calls back to the girls upstairs.
Okay.
Dave's going to get
Not to
inundated,
mention,
Tim's going to get
we
inundated.
will have a lot of audience.
Yeah, I
I would not recommend that.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to the audience factor,
Well-
but if we want to have a public hearing about
Are
it,
you here for the soccer fields?
I turn that over to you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's not do that.
Was it a little loud, boisterous?
Let's
there's a lot
just
of
not do
people.
that. Ellsworth had to escort 2 people out for making overt threats.
About a soccer field?
Yeah.
Welcome to our country in 2000.
So,
It's just, you bought something that backs to a park. What did you think was going to happen? Could be something. I get it, but
Again, I know it's difficult, but I keep trying to get you to focus in on as well that you're the ones that see the complaint. So it's kind of almost like you're not the policy maker per se. You're kind of going both, like wearing 2 hats, so to speak, but it's more of your job just as the board that sees the variances come in from the way
well,
the existing laws.
I think the big thing is there's been a lack of enforcement. So
Right.
it's a dual thing. So with lack of enforcement and then this, where we're allowing it at 20 feet, people are going to do whatever they want. But there's nobody that's going to take and say, you can't do that, here's your ticket.
They weren't, refresh my, they weren't allowed at all before
Yeah,
the 20
they
feet.
weren't allowed at all. And
So the 20 feet was actually,
we gave them a bone.
we
Yep.
gave them a bone, and so now, yeah. so-
Now it's like, here, we'll give you 2. We're going to give you a bone and a couple of snacks.
Like I said, it's a very
just keeps
slippery
going.
slope. You give them an inch, you're going to give them a mile.
And then get the gazebos in the lake.
Yep. So,
I think getting just that enforcement, like I said, super important.
Yeah.
I just don't think, devil's advocate again, like 20 feet, like it's someone's backyard, what does it matter? Your view is gonna be obstructed if I put a gazebo up 20 feet from the water or 5 feet from the water. It's gonna be obstructed, right? So we talk about like obstruction, like I have every right, 21 feet, I'm gonna, put this massive gazebo up next to my massive playhouse that I'm allowed to do, right? And my pump house that I'm allowed to have, and my, I just don't, 20 feet, I mean, we can go either way on it, but the view is already obstructed if someone decides to put a gazebo up. And they have every right to.
Is it something that we can say we're willing to open up and talk about it, but we're not necessarily saying it needs to change, but we're willing to have the conversation? Or is that really what we're doing tonight?
that's essentially what we're doing tonight. Either we firmly want it changed, or we don't.
Well, I think we reflect the village, though, because for every pergola or gazebo that goes up, there's a neighbor that complains about it. So, I think we reflect the...
You hit it. That's why we're asking you reflect the village, because you're seeing the ones that are coming,
Yeah.
like wanting it, or upholding that, no, you shouldn't have it, so it's, yeah.
Can we have more data around that? Like how many of the zoning requests or variance requests in the last 3 years have been related to this topic, and how many
Handful.
maybe complaints
Handful.
have?
But would they have pulled a permit and it
Yeah,
got
it seems
denied
like-
and they just never came before us?
Right.
So how many people pulled a permit and it got, is that how it
Right.
happened?
Yeah.
And we just wouldn't have seen it, maybe they decided not to come before us?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, the only
Do we
way-
have those numbers? I don't know.
But
they
again,
pull
you still have a
permits for
lack of
gazebos, though?
enforcement that's been happening.
I mean-
So it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Without the
Yeah.
enforcement aspect of it, where they're saying,
Yeah.
when you build something that's out of code, you're gonna get hit. No, it's ultimately the way it's working is, if you piss your neighbor off, the neighbor's gonna turn you in,
Right.
and you're gonna get citation.
Yeah, then that process
Yeah.
starts from there.
But, I
We're
mean,
not proactive in that process.
I think that's the bigger issue with this than allowing them, not allowing them. Again, personally, I think it's a slippery slope in terms of
You're allowing something because somebody is doing something illegal. Any which way you slice it, you're allowing something because somebody's doing something illegal and we're not catching it.
Right.
So where do you stop with it? If you allow this, somebody's going to do that, you're going to allow that next?
Being devil's advocate on this as well, it's why it's kind of come up is there's so many people doing this particular thing illegally, and then people coming to ask for it. Is this something that the village wants then? That the village needs and this regulation should be changed? Because so many people are doing it illegally, and
Should it
people are
not be illegal
asking it,
anymore?
should it, yeah, is the greater consensus, the need for it to change the ordinance to make it not illegal
But
anymore?
the same thing could be said for sheds.
I mean, how many cases have we actually
Conceivably,
seen?
if you
We don't have
say
enforcement, so
no,
there's,
I know, I'm
and
just
they
saying.
enforce it,
I've called about.
then you're going to hear more cases on
Yeah.
it, because
Right.
everybody's going to say, tear it down, well, I want to seek a variance for it.
Yep.
So then you guys are going to have more
Yeah.
cases on
It's been
the
here for 30
right
years.
front gazebos. Because they'll go for a variance, even the court will make you exhaust your efforts at the village before you have to tear
Sure.
something down. So they'll have to come to you for a variance.
Yeah, it will not be an inexpensive scenario for the village to have to defend tearing down a gazebo. I mean, I know we have a budget for legal, but, I mean, if you've got 7, 8, 9 of these things,
There's more than that.
Way more.
There's like
10 of these,
60.
20 of these, 60?
If you count structures and
So you guys actually did a count?
we lost track, yeah, there's a lot.
I think it
Oh,
was like
like-
tiki huts, those little sheds down by the
Yeah.
water, like all of
Well,
them.
the
Who
busy
did that,
summer.
the planning commission?
No,
just
just
you.
They just blend in.
my husband and I and our friends.
Yeah.
You know,
Because I was
you know,
curious,
you
like,
know
how many are there?
Are the, what Aaron was saying, are the little pump houses are allowed though, or those?
They're
Yeah, only
allowed.
3 feet tall.
Yeah, you gotta be, yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody cares about those things. I mean, I don't,
But I'm just saying, like, I could put this massive play structure, which my neighbor has, and it's a nice play structure. Like, that's their right. And I have one in my backyard, I could put a massive one in my backyard, and my neighbors can't say anything. I'll add a picnic table to it, or, you know, something, I don't know, but I'm allowed, because it's a play structure.
But it's not in the 20 feet?
Yeah, it is.
Or
It
you're
can go
saying, oh,
anywhere.
you're saying within the 20 feet?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Gotcha.
the play structures
Yeah.
can go anywhere.
yeah. Well, I have a neighbor that planted 4 wood posts and hung lights. Looks like a Christmas tree lot. If you look, watch Christmas Vacation, that's exactly what it looks like. And it's well within 20 feet of the lake, and the village seems to be okay with it.
So then is what you're saying, okay, maybe this is what the people, this is what they want. So
Well, the
that's what
problem
we're
is,
asking, yeah.
what they want and what's best for the village could be 2 separate issues. I mean, we all want stuff, but is that what's best for the community? You know, some people would want to put sheds in their street side of a lake house. They'd build a house almost right on top of the road. I mean, if we didn't have easements or setbacks, I mean, we'd be basically covering the whole lot with one house. So we have to have some type of rules. We have to start somewhere. And if we have 60 of these structures, I mean, yeah, I guess we have a problem. Because now what happens? If somebody comes to us and says, I want to do this, no, we can't do it. Well, wait a minute, I have 17 neighbors on my street that have the same thing. You know, we all talk about everything being equitable. Is that equitable?
Why would people
Right.
even ask? They're just gonna do it.
Right, yeah, a lot of people just do it. And if the village doesn't say anything, then it just continues. 60 turns into 150.
Lack of enforcement.
So that's why you need the enforcement if the rule's there.
Yep.
But at this point, I don't think we can enforce 60 of these.
Well, it's not, that's not your question.
Yeah.
Again.
And that's unofficial.
Don't take gospel.
Well, I don't even know how the code enforcement officer would even try to do the enforcement. He can't technically go in your yard.
You can go on a boat.
Technically,
You can go on a boat.
right, Tim?
Right.
Even though he came in my yard.
Right, well, this boat is.
You can go on a boat.
Well, I've said that in the past. Go on the boat and drive around. But has he been on the boat?
No.
Does the boat still work?
We have a new boat.
Still work?
We have a new boat.
He hasn't walked down to the boat yet.
That is true.
We're looking for guidance as well right now. part
It
of.
does seem like there's a lot of homeowner desire to have these kind of new structures.
There's probably homeowner desires for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's what's best, part of what we're doing is what's best for the overall community, not just what's best for, half of the lake. Maybe the other half doesn't want it. And do we like the open air concept? Because a lot of people just don't want, if you tell people you can do it, I think more people are like, oh, cool, I can do it. And right now it's a gray area, a lot of people aren't going to cross that line because they don't want the issue of coming here, hearing from Tim,
Or they know their
code enforcement.
neighbor's going to call on.
Right. Even though their neighbor might have one.
Yep.
I don't know.
I guess putting devil's advocate again, look at it, we've all been focusing, which I was trying to get you to focus on that, of the people that have it. Well, not everybody does, right? Even though you're saying 60 or whatever, how many don't?
Yep.
For that 60 that have it, what's the percentage that don't have it? So
Right.
look at it that way as well when you're thinking.
Yep.
How could we use the GSI satellite images? Right? Can't we pull from 10 years, 20 years ago or something, where we can say if you've had it for X amount of time or something?
That's not really our place, though.
No?
That's the village.
We're just making the recommendation, that's right.
With the understanding, I think it's fair that you know that the village administration and council asking you to do this, they are also aware of, okay, if we don't change it, then we do, as the council and administration, need to look at what we're going to do.
Right.
So they are aware of
We have
that.
talked about upping the enforcement on stuff.
Yeah, so I definitely, the enforcement's really where I think is the biggest hurdle for the whole situation.
I mean, the enforcement's out of our hands. I think from my perspective, I don't want to open this up. I'm not, I would love to have a gazebo by the lake. I think it'd be great, but I'm just more worried that all of a sudden now we're going to be lined with gazebos, structures at the lake, and is that what we want? From my perspective, it would be no, but I'm not opposed to somebody disagreeing with it.
And again, keep in mind, we're just talking that 20 feet.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think at 20 feet, that's not that far from the water. I mean, 20 feet's from basically probably where I'm sitting to the second row of those chairs. It's probably fairly close.
If that far, yeah.
It might even be between the first and second row of the chairs. So it's not like we're talking from here to my car out in the parking lot.
Right.
It's not that far. It's 6.5 yards.
Yeah, the second row chair.
That's a good point.
Did you measure it?
Ceiling tiles are 2 feet.
This is why we have building inspectors. This is why. He earned his money. He earned that money he made today. Thank you, sir. All right, so from me to that second row of chairs, there's the water. Is this doable? Do you really need it closer?
Seems reasonable.
I like it.
Seems reasonable to me.
Aaron?
But is that really changing what we're trying to accomplish? If someone's going to throw a huge party in their gazebo 20 feet from the water, what's the difference if they're throwing it 5 feet from the water?
No, you're right.
I'm just saying, what, I just don't know what we're trying to accomplish by making them hold that 20 feet. Because we could have people building structures at the 20 feet. If we're all concerned about the structure being built, what's stopping them from building that 20 feet out? A shed or a storage unit or whatever we've talked about.
No, can't do that. Won't
Right,
do those.
right.
I think they define a gazebo too in square footage. So it's not like they're gonna build one,
What's the square?
20.
Do you remember what Kathy?
I think it's 64 square feet or 81 square feet, something like
So
that.
8 by 8, 81 would be 9 by
60,
9.
yeah.
I look back at my ceiling tiles.
That's just my thought.
No, you're very valid.
I just
You have a
don't
great
know.
point, and I appreciate you taking the other side of it. That's awesome. I mean, this is part of why we're discussing it. It's okay to have a discussion. It's great. We don't have to all agree.
Right.
What do you guys think?
I think it should stay the way that it is personally.
I don't know, it's hard for me to say. I've only been on the board so long, I've worked in other communities where I've helped do an assessment for similar needs and which, of which, I really would take a statistical look at, what was coming in and then also, compare against the character of the community, and also, I personally, I don't have a lake lot, so I don't know if that matters, but I can see arguments for both sides, really.
Sure.
So I'm kind of in the middle, to be honest.
Okay. Bonnie, what are your thoughts?
I see arguments on both sides, too. My initial thought is to leave it the way it is. I just have nightmares about what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about it.
If I could too, furthermore, maybe if it might behoove me to be more compelled, I suppose, to change it from where it is, receiving more evidence of the necessity, because without that, I guess, I don't really have a strong basis to change, without receiving more evidence that would be necessary to change. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I guess that's my position right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, it's kind of hard to, have a good night, thank you.
Thank you, too.
It's kind of hard for us to make that decision. I mean, we don't have a lot of data in front of us. It's kind of off the cuff a little bit. I'm not ready to make the change now, but I'm not opposed to listening to data that would potentially change my mind in the future.
Agreed.
I think, is that fair?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I know where Mark's stance is. He's pretty much, he doesn't want to change it, and I respect his decision. Tonight, I would say probably no, but if there's documentation that people want to show us that this, and this, I'm not opposed to looking at it. But as of right now, for me, I think 20 feet, especially looking at from here to those chairs,
Is reasonable.
I think that's reasonable to think that it's, 10 steps at the most, 8 to 10 steps. But Aaron's got a valid point. What's the difference between here and 4 feet closer? Mm-hmm. Neighbors are still going to be upset. But there's only a certain amount of square foot. There's open air, open light. So
I think from a safety perspective too, because I grew up on this lake. So when I was a little kid, we were out by the lake, by the dock, and I fell in, right? So not to say that people are going to be irresponsible, but the closer that you are to the water, I mean, things like that
Yeah,
are
but
going to happen.
parents that want to be right near their kids swimming on the lake, and they want to have shade while their kids are swimming in the lake.
Yeah.
So why would I want to be, that's a huge difference
That's a great
between here
point, too.
and there if I'm sitting in the shade. I'm not saying I'm putting a gazebo up, I'm just saying, that's going to be a concern for.
say you're putting up a gazebo, aren't you?
Right, 21 feet, sure. I have trees, I don't need it.
20.9
I have the shade, I don't need it, but I'm just saying, I know that there's properties and parents that would love to have that.
That's a true point too, yeah.
Be close to the water so they can watch their kids swim.
That's, yeah.
So I guess to focus it in again, is there enough?
So as we go back to this a 15th time.
Is there enough consensus that you feel that there's a need for change? I guess that's the more
It doesn't sound like it now.
Well, do we need to
Because there
take-
were reasons why these regulations were put in by others and through a process and et cetera. So to change it, we do need a bit more of a
There's still nothing
solid
stopping somebody from using an umbrella.
feeling.
Or one of those, you put those not tents, I'm sorry, with the canopies that you just, you fold up and then you just pull it back down, put it back in the bag. Matter of fact, I've actually done that at my house because I don't have trees by our lake, but we do have trees behind us.
Like you'd use at the beach or
Yeah.
something.
So it doesn't sound like there's a consensus to open this up. I think the consensus is to potentially the pool, the spa, and the hot tub thing. I think there's a consensus there. I think the gazebo thing, I think for right now, it's probably not a consensus, but I think all of us are open to listening to additional data if more data is out there. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yes.
And I appreciate Erin's perspective of, being on the other side of it, because I think she makes some really good valid points.
Yes.
And I would like to maybe throw it back to the council or the village as to what they plan to do for enforcing whatever decision we agree on, or the ordinance. whether we change it or leave it alone, something has to be done for those inequitable use of the
I
yard.
think that's been communicated to them, and, yeah, and the
100%.
council liaisons right here, so.
I've said it multiple times.
But,
If you have it, get on a boat, write them up for it.
but I also don't want to bankrupt the village from a legal
Right,
counsel
and
perspective.
that's
because
another consideration
we're-
for the
you know,
village. If
we're
there's so
spending-
many people that are wanting to have a structure, is it better to acknowledge that and then set really firm limits on what kind of structure can go in that space, so they can do it, but it has to be not the thing that...
I think we're circling back again, though.
Yeah.
We're circling back, so again, it's that 20-foot thing, they can have it, but, you know, so.
There's no way you're going to get 60-plus structures taken down in this village. If that's what this board is thinking is going to happen, I truly don't think that's ever going to
I
happen.
don't think that's your concern, as far as, you know, you're more deciding.
No, but I think it's part of what the conversation point is,
Right.
and I think that's what everyone has brought up. I think everyone has said it, and I think we have to be honest with ourselves that that's not going to happen. At least it's not going to happen in a timely manner. I mean, it might take years for that to happen, because every neighbor is, well, I shouldn't say every, because you never want to say every. I would say the majority of these folks are going to fight this. And especially the people who bought these properties that had this pre-existing. They're going to say, well, wait a minute, I've owned the house for 20 years, it was here when I bought it, now you're telling me I can't have it? You know, I think it's going to give the village a black eye, because you know this is going to get out to the press a little bit too. But that's not from our perspective to worry about, but I do think it's a realistic scenario of whatever we do here, understand that's where it's going to go. So, from my perspective right now, I'm a no, but I'm open to listening to additional data and additional stuff. And if it's us, or if it's me going to planning and talking it through with planning, I'll volunteer my time. If it's going to council, I'll happy to volunteer my time to do that. And, you know, maybe we can talk it out.
Because I think they were looking for council to add it to the agenda for the meeting as something for us to talk about, if we were to discuss it as another concern coming from the ZBA.
Something
number of
council
cases we're
wants
seeing.
me or all of us to come in front of, I'm sure we could figure it
The
out.
motion, the exact motion from the last meeting from council was they wanted to refer the issue of accessory buildings and structures in lakefront yards to the ZBA for input and/or feedback to be communicated to the planning commission. So if you are saying, okay, we want, well, the accessory, we're adding the pool issue as well, so that would be given as feedback to the planning commission, and then your feedback on the gazebo issue, I guess, would be, we do not need to change the ordinance as it stands. So that's your choice. Change the gazebo ordinance, have them look at it, say, nope, we think they should be allowed, or leaving it as it is, we don't think there's a need at this point in time to have it sent to planning commission to review amending the ordinance to allow these structures.
I think from a gazebo standpoint, I think we're not all in agreement, but I think there's a majority that is saying at this point, without additional information, I think we leave it as is, correct?
I agree with that.
Yes.
Do you want to take, I mean, I don't think it's formally required, but do you want to take a vote just to,
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
okay?
All right, so who wants to do, let's do a motion that we are going to go back to the planning commission to have them open up and potentially change the existing code enforcement, which says the gazebo is being no closer than 20 feet. So there's a motion. Someone second the motion.
We always do motions, and I see you're questioning, looking, we always do motions in the positive to say, I make a motion to send this and have it changed, and then you vote
Oh.
yes or no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, can we wait to get that data before we make that motion
Doesn't
right now?
sound like it. Sounds like they
What
want this.
data are you actually looking for?
Well,
though?
we were wanting to have more data around how many cases have come forward asking for this, and if there's any knowledge of building permits that had been turned down because it didn't
I
comply
think
with
Tim
the...
can tell us, was saying right now that you
Well,
don't need a
I
building
would
permit
say
for
there's
it.
one.
Yeah, since I've been on the board, I think we've probably dealt with
We've had,
gazebos
you know, we've
on
had
the lake.
3 or 4 of them
Not
on the
many.
lake, but one has been a problem.
Yeah. Now, have stuff popped up on the lake that's still sitting there in the last 20 years? Sure has. And it's still sitting there. They never came in front of us. I'm sure they didn't pull any paperwork from Tim. So we're never going to get the correct data because I don't think the people that have gotten away with this have gone the correct path. I just think they haven't been caught yet.
Right.
And they may not ever get caught. And if they do get caught, it may just be what it is.
I remember one on Oakview, one on Oak Island, one on Englewood.
Yeah, there's at least 3 that I can think of.
That's the 3 I remember.
That sounds right. I think I've been on the board the longest, so it's 3 that I can remember. And
Why does it seem like such a problem?
I think because
it's the one person.
And I think if I'm recalling correctly, it's when they've come to ask for that, and then they say, oh, but all these other people have it, so the other people haven't come before you, and so that's when I think you got to thinking like, oh, is this true? Like, if these all have it, well, then maybe we should think about it, but it isn't actually people.
It's not the number of variance requests, it's the sightings of non-compliance.
And we don't know how many people that have gone up to upstairs that wanted this, and then when they find out it's 20 feet, they go, oh, never mind, I wanted it closer.
Right.
So we'll never know that data because they don't keep that data over there.
And the folks that were here kind of were told to go to council to, don't ask us to change the ordinance, we don't change the ordinance. You have to ask somebody else, and that's the reason it's.
Yep, and I was the one that did.
So the council is following through on that.
Right, and I was the one that did that because it's true, we can't change things.
You can't do it.
All we do is enforce what's on the books, so. I think from the gazebo perspective right now, it's probably leave it as is.
So you make a motion to leave the gazebo issue, or
Make a
leave the
motion.
gazebo, the ordinance as is, and no referral by ZBA is necessary regarding the gazebo issue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay or whatever?
Nay.
All right, so looks like that's going to go. Do you want to do a motion that we are going to separate pools, spas, and hot tubs?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
That we refer back to the planning commission to define swim spas, above-ground swimming pools, and hot tubs.
And that you would recommend
I would
allowing
recommend allowing hot tubs, but not the above-ground pool or the the swim spot.
There was no second on leaving the gazebo as is.
I seconded it.
Oh, did you? I'm
Yep.
sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
You want a second? Do you want a
Second? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I was an aye, I didn't say anything myself. I'm an aye, so we're all in favor. Okay, anything else? You want to go over?
That was great.
That was it?
Thank you for working through
Sorry,
this. I
sorry
think
that we
this-
kept going back
I
and
think
around
this was
and around.
beneficial
Round
to do
logic.
this. This is what you had to do, and you guys did a good analysis, I think, so.
All right, let's kind of tidy this up. Council, anything?
I got nothing. Merry Christmas.
Table business, anything, nothing, adjournment. Everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Tuesday, January 17th, anybody have an issue with that date? Kathy is gone, so we need everybody else here, please. Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Second. Tim, thank you. Merry Christmas to you.